the most consequential of whom is Tucker Carlson. I believe Tucker Carlson is the single most dangerous demagogue in this country. Carlson says he is done with the Republican Party. He says it puts the interest of Israel above those of its own citizens. I would not support the Republican Party. There's no chance I would support the Republican Party. Read those words again. Let them sink in. Because what you are watching right now is not just a high-profile political dispute. It is not a temporary disagreement over foreign policy, and it is certainly not just another standard talking head narrative designed for a 24-hour cable news cycle. This is the exact moment the foundation begins to split wide open. When a man who virtually defined the modern conservative media landscape, a voice that spent years dictating the outrage, the narrative, and the direct talking points of millions of voters, openly, publicly, and irreversibly walks away from the Republican establishment, it doesn't just make headlines, it creates a massive structural seismic shockwave, and that shockwave is tearing directly through the heart of the American political system. Because a split of this magnitude, it never ever happens in a vacuum. Think about what is actually occurring behind the curtain. When someone as insanely influential as Tucker Carlson looks directly into the camera and signals to millions of diehard supporters that he is completely done supporting the party, he isn't just offering a personal opinion, he is issuing a direct blueprint for mass defection. He is handing a massive portion of the population explicit permission to question, to rebel, and to abandon ship. This isn't standard political criticism. This is a severe systemic warning sign of an ideological collapse taking place in real time. When the most powerful megaphones in media begin actively turning on the very establishment they helped build, it triggers immediate, uncontrollable instability at the very top. It creates deep, paralyzing confusion among everyday voters. And worst of all for the party establishment, it places an unbearable, crushing amount of pressure on elected officials who are suddenly forced to pick a side. And as we are witnessing right now, that pressure isn't just building, it is reaching a catastrophic boiling point, one that threatens to fundamentally reshape or completely shatter an entire political party overnight. And if you think this is unprecedented, think again. History leaves clues, and the political history of this country holds a terrifying, undeniable warning. Let's remember the last time you had a major split in the Republican Party, Bill Clinton won 2 presidential elections with less than a majority of the American people. He won 1992 with 43% and in 1996 with 49%. And the reason was Ross Perot. And it allowed a Democrat to win with less than a majority. Stop right there. Look closely at those numbers. That right there is where a simple political warning transforms into a brutal, mathematical, historical pattern. We have watched this exact tragedy play out before. When a major political base fractures down the middle, it doesn't just create dramatic news segments, it fundamentally hands absolute power over to the opposition. Back in the 1990s, the political establishment thought they had everything under control. They assumed the conservative base had nowhere else to go. But then came a third-party disruption. Ross Perot stepped into the arena, pulled millions of angry, disillusioned voters away from the GOP at the ultimate critical moment, and completely shattered the conservative coalition. The result? A moderate Democrat named Bill Clinton marched straight into the White House twice without ever securing a true majority of the popular vote. Now look at the present day. Fast forward to this exact moment, and the historical parallels are becoming terrifyingly impossible to ignore. The exact same structural dynamic is repeating itself. Internal rivalries are exploding into the open. Iconic figures are openly breaking ranks. Millions of voters are left wondering who actually represents them. The threat here isn't just petty political infighting or angry Twitter rants. It is a full-scale historical fracture, a deep-seated mutiny that could, once again, completely tip the balance of supreme power in Washington. And while the media keeps focusing on the public speeches, the real destruction is happening behind closed doors, in panicked phone calls, and through desperate late-night text messages. I tell the president that he's clearly got the votes, that I will try and work to get something done in the House. He didn't need my vote, and that I would be respectful and quiet and try to do my work on the House side. And then I got that text that I texted on, or I saw the tried, I'd never read it. Did you catch that subtle, chilling shift in tone? That brief, awkward statement exposes the exact moment where the private political machinery completely collapsed. Notice what was just admitted. Direct conversations with the highest levels of leadership. Explicit acknowledgments that the votes were already locked in. Private promises that the outcome was effectively decided and that lawmakers were fully prepared to fall in line, step aside, and keep their mouths shut. I would be respectful and quiet. That is what lawmakers say when they think they have a secure deal. That is the language of quiet, fall-in-line politics. But then came the text, and in an instant, everything exploded. That single, unexpected message marked the exact turning point where private assurances yielded to raw, ruthless, agonizing political pressure. When private deals turn into public fallout, trust inside the party dies instantly. Lawmakers who thought they were safe suddenly realized they've been thrown to the wolves. They realize that behind-the-scenes loyalty means absolutely nothing when the narrative shifts. And when politicians feel completely sidelined, intentionally overridden, or suddenly exposed to public wrath, they don't just stay quiet anymore. They panic. They retaliate. Or, as we are seeing more and more every single day, they decide to burn the bridge down behind them and walk away completely. And then, the threats started becoming public. The president called out Tom Tillis and said he would be looking for another Republican to primary challenge him next year. Well, then the senator said, "Look, I am not running for re-election." So that is one of the interesting fallouts, at least politically speaking, from that new tree, the party. Read between the lines. Because that is not just standard political maneuvering, that is absolute, unadulterated political execution. The pressure wasn't hidden behind committee room doors anymore. It was broadcast directly to the entire nation. When the leader of a movement publicly singles out a sitting United States senator, points the finger directly at him, and openly threatens to unleash a brutal primary challenge to destroy his career, the political calculus changes in a fraction of a second. And look at Senator Tom Tillis's reaction. He didn't launch a counter-campaign. He didn't hire more political consultants. He didn't double down to fight for his seat. He simply said, "I'm out. I am not running for re-election." Let that sink in. A sitting U.S. senator, one of the most powerful positions on earth, looked at the reality of remaining inside his own party, calculated the immense psychological, financial, and political toll of trying to survive the incoming friendly fire assault, and decided that surrender was better than staying in the fight. That is not just an isolated personal decision. That is a massive, glowing red warning flare sent straight to every other conservative politician in Washington. It proves beyond a shadow of a doubt how toxic, how intense, and how unforgiving the internal purge has become. Instead of unifying the party around a single vision, these public executions are driving seasoned, key figures directly out the door, leaving behind an ever-growing trail of high-profile departures that points to an irreversible systemic collapse. And just when you think the political pressure couldn't possibly get any worse, the crisis spills out of the halls of Congress and plunges straight into the gutter of personal scandal. Miller is facing accusations of domestic violence against his ex-wife Emily Moreno, the daughter of U.S. Senator Bernie Moreno, who has called for Miller to step down. Our state's other U.S. senator was asked to weigh in this week. Do you believe that Miller should resign? Are you calling on him to get out of the race? And then, silence. Notice how the air gets sucked out of the room the second personal destruction enters the equation. Because political infighting is one thing. You can debate policy, you can argue over voting records, you can spin legislative failures. But when severe, explosive allegations of domestic violence hit a sitting congressman, and those allegations involve the family of another sitting United States senator from the exact same party, the entire political apparatus grinds to a sudden, agonizing halt. This is no longer just about ideology. This is personal, deeply raw, and utterly toxic. Look at what is happening here. Congressman Max Miller is suddenly trapped in a total nightmare scenario. His own party members aren't rallying behind him. They aren't shielding him from the press. Fellow Republican leaders are publicly stepping up to the microphones, breaking rank, and openly demanding his immediate resignation. When your own allies start publicly calling for your political execution on national television, it signals that the situation has become completely unsalvageable. These scandals don't stay neatly contained inside one district. They radiate outward like radioactive fallout. They force party leadership to divert millions of dollars, freeze legislative agendas, and answer agonizing questions from reporters every single day, all while the party's foundation is already cracking beneath their feet. And in a fragile environment where internal unity is hanging by a microscopic thread, personal scandals like this act as massive catalysts, accelerating the collapse and giving lawmakers even more reasons to throw in the towel and abandon the party altogether. Listen to how cold, calculating, and absolute the calls for his removal became. I believe Max would be making the right decision to step aside as a candidate and resign from Congress to focus on what is in the best interest of his daughter. Miller has been dealing with an onslaught of pressure after allegations of domestic violence have surfaced. And now that pressure is turning into direct calls for resignation. Pay close attention to the words being used here. Step aside, resign from Congress, focus on his family. That is political code for, you are a liability. Get out of the building before you pull the rest of us down with you. This isn't genuine emotional concern for a colleague. This is brutal, high-stakes damage control operating at maximum speed. When party leaders start framing a politician's complete resignation as an act of moral duty, it is a clear, unambiguous signal that the party has completely severed ties with him. The political protection has vanished. The umbrella has been pulled back in the middle of a torrential storm. The relentless onslaught of public pressure combined with brutal media scrutiny creates an environment so incredibly suffocating that staying in office becomes mathematically and psychologically impossible. And for a political party that is already suffering from major ideological defections and a historic wave of early retirements, watching another member get publicly hunted down only deepens the overwhelming sense that the walls are rapidly closing in on everyone. So, how does a politician attempt to survive when their own party turns on them? They execute a desperate, unprecedented maneuver. On Tuesday, Miller made an unprecedented move by referring himself to the House Ethics Committee, saying it would clear him of any wrongdoing. Houston said that these allegations should be investigated thoroughly. The senator also said about Miller and his ex-wife Emily Moreno, one thing that they both seem to agree on is that Ruthie's best interest should come first. Look at what just happened. Referring yourself to the House Ethics Committee, that is a total Hail Mary pass. It is a desperate attempt to regain control of a narrative that has completely spun out of orbit. On the surface, it's spun as a brave, proactive move to prove innocence and clear his name. But in reality, it reveals absolute, utter desperation. When a politician is forced to trigger an ethics investigation against themselves just to stop their own party members from forcing them out, it shows you just how deep the knives are buried. And here is the ultimate irony. Desperate attempts to extinguish the fire usually just pour gasoline directly onto the flames. By referring the matter to an official committee, the controversy isn't buried. It's officially institutionalized. It guarantees that the headlines won't stop. It ensures that subpoenas, leaks, and testimony will drag on for months, keeping the entire scandal locked directly in the national spotlight. Instead of stabilizing the party, it creates a lingering, festering wound that refuses to heal. And this is the precise moment where all these seemingly isolated fires begin to merge into a single, unstoppable firestorm. Step back for a second and connect the dots. Look at the full picture of what is actually taking place right now. This isn't just one provocative media host walking away. This isn't just one senator deciding not to run again. This isn't just one messy text message or one ugly personal scandal. This is a clear, undeniable, dangerous pattern taking shape in real time right before our eyes.